Greg, welcome.
Hey, Yaman, how's it going?
Going well. How are you?
Doing great.
So you sent a few messages that I haven't had a chance to read. No offense to you, but I just kind of generally speaking,
I got you.
I don't read very long messages,
Well,
and I kind of just skip over.
I'm just trying to provide context because, I feel like a lot of the Tesla bulls just so blindly follow Elon that when you give a counterpoint, they start in with, oh, sell your Tesla shares, this or that. I would argue I know this company as well or better than anybody on the space. So this could be turned around, but I think it's fair to say that Elon's behavior since he bought Twitter is just terrible. Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Just
Well,
trying to get my audio working.
You want me to go on?
Well, do you have anything new to say? Like, I understand. So here's what I understand. That you're frustrated with Elon.
Well, I don't think frustrated is the right word. That's kind of like putting it on me. I am not happy with the way he's conducted himself as the CEO of this company after buying Twitter. Let me give you a quick example. Look at the long history of Ross Gerber. Okay.
No, we understand. I think everyone in this space is on the same page about the facts. And I guess what I want to ask you is, so you mentioned earlier that people, immediately start telling you to just sell your shares. So I guess my question to you is, why don't you sell your shares, and why do you keep with the company?
Because it's going to 5x. The best thing that happened to this company is when Jensen Huang kicked Elon's ass in the marketplace. When they hailed Jensen Huang as the world's greatest CEO, that's going to light a fire under Elon, and that's going to get him focused again. We've already seen it with FSD 12. Okay, the delivery report was abysmal. Now he's focused on FSD 12. He needs to get the 4680 up and running, and we need to get Optimus going. So the more people say Jensen Huang is the greatest CEO ever, the faster we're going to make a huge comeback.
Do you think Jensen Huang is a better CEO than Elon?
Right now, hell yeah. But 3 years ago,
no.
So
then why don't you invest in NVIDIA instead?
Well, I'm not buying NVIDIA at 900. People forget NVIDIA pre-announced their quarters.
So basically what you're implying is Elon's behavior, according to you, has created an opportunity for you to buy more shares. And why are you complaining?
I think there's a lot of employees at Giga Texas and Berlin that bought into all of Elon's, hopes and dreams. And I know some Tesla shareholders that work for Tesla that have sold their stock at a loss because they don't understand what's going on. I'm totally
comfortable. My question to you was, why aren't you happy that Elon's behavior, according to you, has created an opportunity for you to buy more shares? Can you not buy more shares? Are you just all in investment? There's no income coming, or what?
No. Well, you didn't read
my message. You can't buy more shares.
You didn't read my message. I just told you.
Yeah, like I said, if somebody is going to send me 2-page long messages.
No, it was a couple paragraphs. You can read it in 30
No, this is not a couple paragraphs. You're lying. You are lying. It's not a couple paragraphs. It was message. Let me tell you something, man. How do you feel about the fact? This is a fact, okay? In the last 48 hours, I have hundreds of subscribers, tens of thousands of followers. You have comprised 99% of my time in DMs in the last 48 hours. How do you feel about that fact?
And who started it? You reached out to me.
I didn't. Hey, man. I didn't start. No, that's not true.
Yes, you did.
False.
After I sent you last few
messages. You're lying.
Hey, no, look at your last message to me.
You're lying.
Look at your last message to me. You said, hey, man, are you still
That's the last message. You said you started it. That is a lie. You're lying on my speaker board. And just because you're a patron doesn't give you the right to come up here and waste everyone's time.
Oh, my God. I have the message right in front of me.
You said you started it.
You did.
That's false.
Value analyst 916 pan. Hey man, how's it going? Feeling any better after a couple days of spaces and time, or still similar concerns about Elon's behavior in general? Happy to chat here or hop on a space and chat about it some more.
That's right. But
you
when
said
you
that
said
to me. I wasn't sending any more messages to you. You said it to me, and I responded.
Are you done?
Yeah, go ahead. I can't believe I'm paying for this abuse on Patreon. This is unreal.
I mean, you're welcome to leave.
No,
nobody's
I don't want to leave.
I
think you're a phenomenal moderator. I think this is great what you do, but I'm allowed to have my opinions and not be attacked. I mean, you're telling me I sent you all these. I sent you 3 follow-ups to your question. I didn't just send them to you. You sent me a question first, and I responded in detail. So you don't think I'm just like spouting off. I backed up what I had to say in detail.
Do you want me to just copy paste the messages? Do you want to paste screenshots?
I don't care.
Okay.
I mean, I threw a bunch of facts in there. Okay. I was very concerned after the spaces where I just brought up the fact that they're way behind on the 4680s. They were making more 4680s in the first quarter of 2023 than they are now. And I got attacked for that. I sent you all the facts, and then you used a very good arguing tactic. You let me fire off all my ammo, and then you say, what you say proves nothing. Okay, fine. Listen, I'm not as articulate as you, but my facts are there. And I have a right to be upset at Elon. And I know many other people are upset at his behavior, but still believe in the company and know at some point he's going to get focused and this thing's going to take off. That's all. That's my point.
Yeah, my concern with you is that you don't stick to facts. And this has been going on for several days now.
I gave you the 4680 facts. You disregarded them as facts after I pulled up transcripts from the conference call. There's nothing else I could do. If you don't believe the earnings transcripts calls that I sent you, then what are we talking about here? Then I'll just comment.
Let me ask you something. Does the section of the transcripts that you sent, does that prove that those 4680s were produced at Giga Texas, which was your initial claim?
Yeah, because it says it right in there.
So when you said earlier that they were produced at Giga Texas, and Omar said, let's ask Sawyer. And yes, you said,
no,
yes,
I said let's ask Sawyer. I said, listen, because I know he's got more detail than some of the people
on here. You guys both agreed that let's ask Sawyer. And Sawyer, what did Sawyer say?
Sawyer said, I believe that it was the Austin. I mean, look, you're asking about people from facts.
What did Sawyer say?
He pretty much backed up what I said. That he
thinks that's a lie. Oh my God. Okay.
What did he say,
Greg?
Jeffy?
Clearly, you have a very fickle relationship with facts, and therefore you're not going to come to speaker board again.
Okay, no problem.
Omar, welcome.
Yeah, I mean, I remember Sawyer saying that they were produced in Cato Road, which is where they were produced.
Yeah, he said mostly Cato Road, and that's what he said. Now, this is kind of this is really crazy. I mean, this is ridiculous. Like, how do you change someone's words?
Emotions
the
are high
recording
right
is there.
now.
We have the recordings, and like this, he's not the only person who did this in the last couple of days. There's another dude, Edward. Okay, he said, remember that instance where I said, misquoting Elon is an immediate dismissal from the speaker board. The guy just continued to say that he did not misquote. I literally went back, found the exact recording, posted it to a reply to him, where he actually says what I said he says. Okay, Edward. And he replies to that and says, that's not what I said. I'm like, do you think I generated this recording? But there's some people I think that I just have to kind of just shut down from the beginning. Like as soon as I kind of realize this guy is just not sticking to facts, that's the end of it, I think. All right. Let's get started. Tesla was up about 5-6% today, about 5%, and then declining throughout the afternoon part of the day. What do you think about today's price action, Omar?
Well, it's surprising to say the least. There does seem to be a similar decline across NASDAQ stocks in the afternoon session. But The strength is surprising. I think bulls and bears alike have been remarking on how they were surprised at how little it fell the day of, and the fact that it's now risen 2 days after. It does seem to support the idea that a lot of this was already priced in. People are now closing their puts, covering their shorts, and yeah, it's a little bit surprising, but that's the market for you, I guess.
Yeah. Let's see. Um, did we talk about the India rumors yesterday?
I don't think so.
What do you think about that? Do you think we're going to? Actually, we have LJ in here too. If she wants to come up and talk about it.
It does sound like maybe there could be something happening here. We heard that they are going to be importing cars from Berlin into India, which is interesting. They also started exporting some cars from Berlin to Australia. So could indicate maybe a lack of demand in Europe or that Berlin is ramping up to higher levels of production and they need new markets to support it. But they announced that they're going to be shipping cars from Berlin into India. Now, India has a very high tariff on the import of cars. So typically you'd have to pay 100% tariff. Recently, India updated their import export regulations to say that you could actually get a lower tariff for the import of cars if you're making an investment in domestic production within India. So they have a lot of tariffs and restrictions designed to encourage domestic production. So this is kind of bending a rule saying, okay, if you do commit to domestic production, at least in some capacity, then we'll let you start importing it. And so the fact that this is coming in, I don't think it would be tenable at 100% tariff. So this suggests that they have figured out how to achieve that lower tariff, which means some sort of investment is likely. So that suggests to me that the likelihood of a Giga India site being chosen is now, I think, a little bit higher than it was before.
LJ, any comments on that?
Not on this specifically, but I do agree with what Omar said about stocks. So I have Apple, Plantier, and Tesla that I invest in, and they've all been showing the same signs that Tesla is showing in the last few days. So I'm not very alarmed about what Tesla stock is going through, and I don't understand why people are so alarmed when this is a trend we've seen among all stocks right now, and we've seen historically this happens, and then the stock goes back up, and it depends on quarters, and you know about this more than me. Like, I'm not explaining this to anyone right now, but I would love to know. I have a question for you, Yaman. I would love to know you from someone who does business and stock analysis in general. How do you see this trend? I don't know. How do you see it in general? Like, I'm not asking for reassurance, but I would love to know how do you see it specifically going back up? Is it something that's going to go back drastically, like exponentially, or is it something going to go back maybe slowly? How does someone who works in this domain see it? Like, I'm not someone who works in this domain. I love Tesla, I just invest in it, but I would love to know your opinion.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think I agree with Elon that Optimus is going to make the majority of the intrinsic value going forward. So that's really what I'm focused on. I would really love more discussions around that. In the meantime, I think the energy gross margins is a potential upside surprise for the market. Automotive, I'm not as positive as others are. I think as long as the interest rates stay high, which, throughout today and yesterday, we had a number of Fed governors come out and say that, they're indicating they're going to keep rates higher throughout the rest of the year. And that's exactly what we had discussed in my other channel, where I focus on macroeconomics. So as long as these average new car loan rates stay around 10%, then I just don't see how we can have exponential growth in orders and deliveries. I think that will. This is just my opinion, and most people disagree with me on this, and my co-host in the other space also disagrees with me on this as well. So take it with a grain of salt, but I think that this will lead to a recession starting later this year or next year. But again, that's not my macroeconomics is not my area of expertise. I'm just really focused on it in the last year or so to kind of learn more because I made some mistakes around it. And so trying to learn from my mistakes, and given the data I see, the hypothesis I have right now is that if the Fed doesn't cut rates by the end of Q2, then a recession is more likely than not to start by the end of this year. Okay, so the Fed has 2 more meetings to cut rates, and then I'm kind of looking at data as it comes along. So if that's true, so we're talking like several assumptions into it now. So you take it with a big chunk of salt. Okay, if a recession starts, then obviously the Fed will lower rates, and all the loan rates will come back up, come back down, and that will lead to higher orders and deliveries for Tesla throughout, let's say second half of 2025 to 2026. Okay, and I think by that time, some of the smaller players will have, I think they're going to have a hard time raising more capital. So maybe they'll exit the space, and that will allow Tesla to grow at a faster rate with cheaper raw materials, cheaper labor than otherwise possible. And then I think by then, Optimus will also start kind of coming into the picture as well. So that's kind of how I see it happening. And one asterisk to that is, we're all watching Omar's videos and others' videos on FSD 12. FSD 12.3.3 seems to be doing really, really well. And we even had someone here over the last couple of days that worked in NVIDIA before and also Cruise, who says a number of times that what he sees in Omar's videos is very similar to what he's experienced with Waymo, with level 4 level kind of capability. And that's amazing. So if that pace, so Ashok also has said that the pace of, no, I don't want to misquote him, but he kind of indicated that these updates should accelerate from here on out. So if that's also true, then this capability gets even better than where it is today at a faster rate. That maybe that can lead to some recovery in the stock price, but we're going to see if that leads to higher orders and deliveries and higher margins and higher prices for Tesla's automotive business. But my base case, that's not going to happen until after rates come down. Omar, anything to add to that?
Yeah, I agree with your analysis. I think markets are obviously impossible to predict. They're second order chaos. A prediction about the market changes the market. So they're impossible to predict. Markets always surprise us. The market surprises me today, but the core auto business for Tesla is not looking very good. And we need rates to come down. They're not coming down. We're looking at 2 to 3 rate cuts this year, but it's looking like maybe the back half of this year that could change. But I think it's important for investors to understand some of the risks to the business, what's going on financially, be prepared for that. Yet at the same time, it's, just kind of a crazy situation where you have a very rare year where it looks like you could see a contraction in the auto business, actually, potentially flat or lower deliveries than last year being in the cards, whereas that just wasn't in the cards previous years. And yet you've got this AI business just taking off that I think is going to make the auto business look small by comparison. So, do your research, understand the risks, but I mean, this story has just gotten really interesting. This tension between the sort of cyclical uncertainty on the auto business side, combined with really these other businesses that are emerging, energy, but also AI, that are just taking off like a rocket ship in some ways. And it's kind of funny because it kind of sounds like a stock pump, right? Oh, how convenient. Now that your auto business is having trouble, you've figured out some big AI breakthrough, but that's objectively what's happened.
All right. Thank you. So we have some pictures from Joe Tagmeyer. Did you see those wrapped Model Ys, Omar, on Joe Tagmeyer's video? I'll pin it
I
up
didn't
here.
know.
Here, I pinned it up here. So he says Giga Texas Model Y and Cybertruck production ramping back up after the end of the first quarter push and Monday down day. We see the outbound lot busy with transports and new vehicles arriving for pickup, and both the east test lot and west end of line facilities busy. So if you kind of zoom into that first picture, you see a few Model Ys wrapped. And some people are speculating that that might be Model Y Juniper, but Tesla already told us that it's not going to happen until next year, right?
Well, it isn't going to happen until next year for the full update with the rear screen and everything. But shortly after Tesla released the new Model 3 in China, they did a slightly updated Model Y. This included the ambient lighting, which is now standard across all of Tesla's other models, and it also included a new dash material, going away from the wood and the white to the same kind of materials you see on the Model 3. So there was kind of like a mini update that happened to the Y. I think that could be really important to carry over into the US too. Because you've essentially got a situation where, okay, people love the new Model 3, but you're having some production ramp up issues at Fremont. People love the Cybertruck, but you're having even more ramp up issues with that product. And the S and X, they're not really looking too hot. Frankly, the Cybertruck has stolen a lot of their thunder from people who have that kind of budget. So they're probably not really looking too hot either. And then you got the Model Y kind of just piling up. It's looking a little old, right? People can see the new Model 3. They know there's all these new Teslas coming, but okay, here's the Model Y. It hasn't been updated yet. So that just kind of mini update to just kind of bring it in line with what they're producing in China and just say, okay, we've kind of updated it for now. I think that would go a long way towards moving Model Y, which is the big problem. They've just seen a lot of Model Y piling up, whereas they were selling very fast last quarter. And we've got this point of sale credit. I've taken advantage of it, multiple times. I had my roommate take advantage of it, and it's a really great incentive. But I think there's just a little bit of a mismatch between the product Tesla's able to supply and what the market is demanding, some of the new products. Now, the big concern would be, given the challenges ramping up the new Model 3, how is Model Y going to be even better? And if they run into the same sort of issues with Model Y, that's a much bigger problem, given that Model Y comprises the majority of their deliveries. So it's a risky thing to do smoothly, but it's something that I think would really help with deliveries.
All right. And in the replies, others are saying that it's probably Quicksilver Model Y.
That would be super cool.
Yeah, Frank the Trunk says Quicksilver would be amazing. Dylan says Quicksilver Model Ys. Yeah. All right. What do you think about Ford announcing that they're going to ramp up, focus on hybrids amidst declining EV demand?
Well, the EV market is actually at record levels if you look at global EV sales, but people aren't buying legacy auto EVs. So you can basically sum up what happened as legacy auto tried to come to the market with EVs and they failed, right? You remember the competition is coming. Oh, Legacy Auto is going to come and they're going to have all these great EVs. It turns out the EVs weren't so great. They kind of sucked because Legacy Auto doesn't know how to write software, and building an EV isn't just like building a gas car with a different engine. It's a very different product. And because and then also they couldn't make them profitably and they couldn't produce them in serious volume. So they're just losing so much money. I mean, we've seen the financial statements, we've talked about them. Investors are only going to be patient with that for so long. So it's something that's going to improve their financials immediately. They're going to say, look, we've got hybrids. That's our solution. And they're not going to invest in EVs. And I think as the market really moves towards EVs decisively, they'll be caught flat footed, and Tesla and the Chinese OEMs will probably be there to pick up the slack.
Well, we have Ken on the board, and Ken now has a small investment in Ford because he believes Ford will be the first to license FSD from Tesla. Ken, would you like to elaborate on that?
Yeah, hi everybody. First off, this is not financial advice. This is a highly speculative play. I live in Detroit. I have lots of contacts over there. I think this is Ford realized that they can't compete in the BEV right now. So they've shifted focus to hybrids to take more of a Toyota approach to try to milk their ICE business as hard and as long as they can. And while they're doing that, I believe they have their skunk works working on a autonomous vehicle that they can switch from hybrids to autonomy when the time is right. And that they will, in fact, be one of the first, I can't say the first, but they will be one of the first to license the technology from Tesla. The Ford family, I just don't see them laying down to BEVs. I just don't see it happening. I think Bill Ford Jr. sees the writing on the wall and is willing to do whatever it takes to keep that company alive. So that's just a speculative play that I'm making, and I've been accumulating for a while now, but it's still a small portion of my portfolio. My portfolio is 90% Tesla and 10% comprised of other investments. So you can call it a hedge, you can call it whatever you want, but I think Ford gets it now. And I think Bill Farley, in several interviews and podcasts that have been pretty low key, has alluded to Ford working on an autonomous vehicle. And that was picked up recently by Stephen Mark Ryan and a couple other the bigger names out there in podcast land. But I think there is credence to that.
So let me ask you this. If Tesla opening up its supercharger network didn't lead to higher demand for Ford EVs, why do you think Tesla licensing FSD to Ford would change that?
I think I think Tesla needs competition, and they realize that. I mean, Tesla's mission is to accelerate, BEVs. So having more people produce the vehicle makes sense, both competition wise and financially. They're going to get a cut of Ford's vehicles. Ford is not going to have to spend the billions to develop the FSD. They're going to take what works and use it in their vehicles. And ultimately, I hope Tesla's plan is to not produce a vehicle and just become the AI software leader of the world. I think that makes more sense. Autos are such capital intensive businesses. It doesn't. I
No,
don't
I
think it makes sense.
understand, Ken, but let me interrupt because you're answering a different question. My
Okay.
question was, let's assume that everything you said is correct, and Tesla will become just a software licensor and everything. And just licenses FSD to Ford. My question was, why do you think that will lead to higher demand for Ford vehicles when we have evidence that Tesla sharing supercharger network, for example, hasn't changed anything for the future of Ford's EVs because they just suck so much?
Well, Ford then can take the time and design the vehicle from the ground up. They didn't really design their BE vehicles from the ground up. They took existing plans and stuck batteries in them. They made a vehicle that clearly the market has rejected. Okay, if the market rejected these vehicles, let's design one from the ground up that fits autonomy and how people are going to utilize that technology.
Okay, so you're saying that Tesla will, Tesla already opened up a supercharger network. You're assuming that Tesla will license FSD to Ford, and then you're also assuming that Ford will go back to the drawing board, design its EVs from ground up with FSD incorporated, and that you're also assuming this step further than that, which is Ford will be best at this than maybe others as well, doing the same thing, and that the profits from all of these steps will accumulate to Ford shareholders, not Tesla shareholders.
Well, Tesla's going to profit because they're going to be licensing software and possibly hardware, and they're going to get cut of the ride sharing revenues that Ford generates. So there's plenty of pie there for both Ford and Tesla.
Okay, Omar, what do you think about all that?
Well, cars are dying, okay? The whole way we think about energy and transportation is changing. It's not going to be, all right, I got to drive to the grocery store. It's going to be, okay, let me send a robot to the grocery store, find what I need, do something for me. So it's going to be an incredibly disruptive time, I think. I wouldn't touch the stock of any legacy automaker. I mean, first of all, these are just, terrible stocks. And I think there's a chance Ford could be the first to license it. I mean, Jim Farley really understands what makes Tesla special, and he was the first to license supercharging. So maybe he could, but I wouldn't even, put more than 50% odds on it actually happening. I think the licensing play is a really interesting thing. Elon made some comments on it, but I mean, this is something that would probably take them 3 to 5 years to integrate into a vehicle. That's just the pace of their new vehicle development process. So they get the hardware from Tesla, they have to put the cameras on, all that stuff. Tesla has to certify the software. It's not clear to me that Ford can survive 3 to 5 years of the kind of disruption we could be seeing here with AI. So I wouldn't invest in them. I would just invest in Tesla instead, which is what I'm doing. I'm buying more shares.
Yeah. Ken, let me ask you this. There's a good question in the replies from Jonas Wormy. If Ford US uses Tesla FSD, who is liable for a crash?
If it's level 5, then that would have to be on the manufacturer of the vehicle, which would be Ford, and those negotiations of liability between Tesla's software and Ford would all be negotiated in the licensing agreement. So my guess is ultimately Ford is going to take responsibility for that liability.
Okay. Omar?
If it was a physical issue with the vehicle, like for example, if the seatbelt caught on fire, any damage resulting from that would be, probably on Ford. But if it was, for example, the software causing a crash or something like that, then it would probably be on Tesla. And that would obviously have to be negotiated on a case by case basis, but that's probably the broad strokes of it.
LJ.
My guess would be, given how AI is interacting now when it comes to regulations and making AI compliant for the usage of everyone. It's the same thing with FSD. I think at some point when Tesla is going to give FSD to other companies, there's going to be some sort of agreement where, let's say, they're giving them, they're franchising it or licensing it to other companies on the basis of use at your own risk, because you're pairing that with hardware they didn't even build, because right now the software and the hardware are being built together by almost the same engineers working together all day long. So when you're giving that, there's that risk. And I don't believe you can blame the manufacturer when if I take Windows OS right now and I put it on a Mac and my Mac bursts into flame, like, it's probably not going to work. And it's not the Macintosh's fault. Like, it's not Apple's fault. It's my fault because I was stupid to put some sort of software that doesn't talk to that hardware. So I think it's broader than that. It's going to have some kind of licensing or terms and regulations, or some kind of contract that's going to happen there that underlines all of these issues. Because I'm pretty sure that Tesla, the executive team, and Elon Musk specifically, the head of the company, is not stupid enough to just give away a software and tell them, oh, go use it on anything you want, on a TV or on an AC, and then if it fucks up, it's my fault. So I think it's a broader conversation worth delving into.
It is a broader conversation, but there's plenty of legal history behind auto companies producing cars and just doing the accountant's analysis on the value of a life versus the value of the market price of the vehicle, how much money they make versus how much they're paying out. So I hate to be cold, but the Pinto cases have taught us that the value of lives are not greater than the value of the business. So yes, the legal liabilities are going to be negotiated in the license agreement, but it's not going to be a non-starter.
Ken, let me ask you this. Without looking, what is Ford's PE ratio today?
Without looking, I am not going to be able to answer that question.
Okay. All right. What is their level of annual unit sales? How many cars they deliver per year?
Their biggest seller is the F-150, and that delivers over 1 million a year.
Yeah, but total?
Less than 2 million.
Omar, do you know?
I think it's around 4 million globally.
Yeah, exactly. And F-150 sales have been declining quite a bit over the years as well.
Yeah, 600,000 just recently.
Yeah. And I was doing some research into GM. And, obviously part of doing research into GM is, looking at other companies as well. And I noticed that a lot of these legacy automakers are trading at 4, 5, 6 times PE multiple, but Ford is at 14, 15. And I kind of want to dig into why, because obviously Ford is just very similar to GM in so many respects. And I think it's because their denominator is it's not a meaningful PE ratio. If it was normalized, it would have been in line with other legacy automakers, about 5 to 6, etc. And that tells me the market is pricing these companies, as if they need to solve two primary problems, which is one, autonomy. They need to produce advanced autonomy, like EVs with advanced autonomous capabilities in high volume. So if they can do that, then they get to survive for the next phase of the automotive. And then if they can't, then they kind of don't survive. So I think, oh, wow. Hold on one second. TSLA, go ahead.
Yeah, so I was going to comment on that a little bit. Yeah, Tesla could license the software out, Tesla could do all that stuff. It could be level 5. But at the end of the day, it's all about who they manufacture them, because nobody's going to care when they're trying to get an autonomous car. If it's a Tesla, if it's a Ford, whatever, they just want the cheapest car that's going to get to them the quickest. So kind of all about manufacturing. Like, who's going to manufacture, and how quickly are they going to manufacture these cars? And I think Tesla wins. Hands down.
LJ.
I have a question for Ken. Didn't Ford cut the F-150 or am I wrong?
Are you talking about the F-150 Lightning or the regular gas ICE F-150?
No, the Lightning. I'm talking about the EV one. Didn't they cut it? Like they cut by 12 billion, I think 12 million, something like that. I don't remember the number. Is it 12 billion in EV investments for?
Well, you can't. So, is there a follow-up question, or are you just asking for a fact?
Yeah, I'm asking. I'm asking for facts from Ken about this, because he was mentioning he mentioned the F-150 Lightning. I was like, didn't it get cut in October, I think?
No, he was talking F-150 in general.
Oh, okay, then.
All right. TSLA, what do you say to Ken?
I missed what you said. What do I say to Ken about what?
Hold on one second. Tim, go ahead.
Yeah, I had a question for the panel. NHTSA proposed automatic emergency braking standards for all cars in May of last year, and I'm wondering if it's the FSD licensing is more for vision-based automatic emergency braking, understanding that Tesla has probably the best using cameras and with cross-traffic automatic braking. Would that be something if NHTSA proposes that standard, just like they did for backup cameras for new cars? Would it be easier for automakers just to license vision-based AEB?
Omar?
So I think FSD licensing is a huge deal. I think it's going to happen. And I think it must happen. And I know Yaman disagrees with me on this, and a lot of people disagree with me on this, because they say, why give away a moat with FSD? But, recently Elon's made some comments. He said, and we will license it. And he's made some other comments about licensing. I kind of threw around some ideas about what the sort of broad terms of the agreement could look like with OEMs. And he said, yeah, we'd be happy to do a deal with like this with automakers. So I think he's probably gotten some calls as FSD 12 has come out, maybe from Jim Farley, maybe from others, maybe from some Chinese automakers, to start discussions about what it might be like to integrate this into their vehicles, at least as a possibility to explore. And like I've said, their design cycles are pretty long, so it would take several years just to sort of get this out. So I think they license it out and provide these active safety features for free. It would just be tremendous to get this on as many cars as possible. And then you essentially allow the user to pay for FSD just like they would on a Tesla, subscribe, pay on demand, or buy in full. And if you really think about, okay, there's 80 million cars produced in the world. So Tesla's making about 2 million-ish, right? So about 2.5% of the cars that are produced this year will be able to run FSD. Now, let's assume that Tesla was able to get to 20 million cars a year in 2030, and they're able to do, 25%. Well, what about the other 75%? Either the rest of the industry dies and it's just Tesla and a few others who can do autonomy, or you have to actually leverage that production capacity and say, okay, you start integrating this in. And just like with superchargers, they only opened up part of the network. You don't give them the best stuff, you give them hardware 3, right? You give them not the latest, they don't get the updates as fast. It's still going to be better, of course, to get a Tesla. You're going to have hardware 5, whatever. But you at least give them something so they can have the basic active safety features. I mean, just imagine how many crashes that could prevent. And they're able to activate FSD on that car if they made the mistake of buying something that's not a Tesla. And then you really think about, from a business model perspective, I think what a lot of people don't appreciate is Tesla is the only one who can supply a product like this. A product that does full drives, but doesn't require pre-mapping or any inexpensive hardware. The only product that's actually viable to integrate into a mass-produced vehicle and that actually has demonstrated the ability to run in the real world at a scale of millions of vehicles, is well tested, is used, and has engineers who know what they're doing. So Waymo can't do this, Nvidia can't do this, Mobileye can't do this sort of full driving, certainly not without pre-mapping. So it's an incredibly unique product offering they have here. And it can provide active safety too for free. So I propose just marketing it as the North American driving standard. FSD is kind of controversial, autopilot's controversial. Just call it the North American driving standard. And I proposed give non-Tesla EVs, they typically pay a higher price unless they do the $13 a month charging membership. Give them the same price that Teslas get at superchargers if they also integrate this into the vehicle. Because the most important thing is for us to just collect more data than anybody else right now. And that would be the thing that makes it happen.
Okay.
So I have
Okay.
a follow-up question to Omar about that.
Sure. Yeah, the topic is your investment right now. I want to understand why you chose to allocate monies into Ford instead of buying more Tesla shares. And again, I don't want to, we're not attacking you. Okay. Everybody is welcome to do whatever they want to do with their money. I really just want to understand how you're thinking.
Okay. And like I said at the beginning, this is a very speculative investment and I don't recommend it. And it's not a large portion of my portfolio, number one. Okay. That's it, period. Okay. So if we're going to have the North American driving standard, and are you saying that Tesla needs to give FSD to other auto manufacturers to incorporate it in their vehicles?
Yes, I think that the Tesla Vision technology can provide active safety. It can be software updated and it can run FSD. It can drive the car. So we really want to get this into as many cars as possible. The market opportunity is the value of an autonomous car times the number of cars. And allowing other automakers to serve different vehicle form factors and stuff like that, it could help us progress a lot faster. So, and number one is just data. Build a data moat that's bigger than anybody else, and you will have the best model. And then I believe that regulators, once this technology is low cost and widely available, and that's why I'm prescribing this business model where the barrier to entry is very low. The cost of the automaker is minimal, it's at cost for the hardware. But then you sell the user the convenience features and they get the safety features for free. If the government ends up mandating, as they've started to do with AEB, more advanced active safety features, the kind Tesla's developing, what they call automatic collision avoidance, essentially making the car impossible to crash, because the car knows how to drive itself, so it should know how to prevent a crash, and you just do that even if they haven't paid for FSD. So if the government were to regulate and require something like this, and Tesla were to have a solution on the market, and they have the best solution because they have the biggest data moat, then you could see them taking at least a very large share of the market, I think.
Okay, but Tesla would have to be compensated for their software, correct?
I would charge the end user just the same way they're charged if they buy a Tesla.
Okay, so you and I are basically saying the same thing, except you're saying, no, you and I are saying the same thing, but I'm willing to bet that Ford sees that same vision that you have and is going to be taking advantage of it and can sell the car.
But what makes Ford special? Why are they going to make money instead of BYD, who's really good at making low cost EVs, and they can license it too and kick Ford's ass, or even the Tesla next gen or whatever, for that for that matter.
That's a great question. That's the $60,000 question, right? But BYD has its own challenges, and they're not allowed to import right now. So, assuming they can overcome any import tariffs or import bans, then yeah, BYD would be a great play.
Ken, we have a couple of questions for you in the replies and on YouTube live chat. First of all, what is the expected term of your investment in Ford? And again, like you said, I mean, not that it changes anything, whether it's a small investment or a large investment. I don't think the questions would have changed actually. So, what's the expect? Are you kind of doing a few months until they announce, or is it a multi-year?
Right now, I'm willing to hold for 3 to 5 years.
Wow.
I got in a couple years ago, so I've been accumulating the position. I got very low basis from where it is now, so there's not a lot of pressure on me to do it, and that's money I don't need. It's just money I don't need right now.
And now you've
I'm
been
not
collecting their
positive Ford will exist in 3 to 5 years.
right? But just one second. So you'll be collecting dividends as well, right, on that investment?
Yeah, they're paying roughly 4.5%.
Mm-hmm. And then another question ACDC reminded me in the replies that I was going to ask you is, when do you think the 1,000th Ford with FSD to hit the roads? 1,000th unit of Ford, whichever vehicle, with FSD on it.
I'll go with everybody else and say that again. I can't answer that question because Tesla hasn't perfected FSD. When will Tesla perfect FSD? When will they license FSD? I don't know.
Well, you can also kind of frame it in the sense that maybe like 6 months after they perfected it, or however many years. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but if you can give us either I just want to understand like your expectations and kind of framework of the future. If Meta was here, he would tell you. Is he here? No. But if Meta was here, because he's been in your shoes quite a bit, he would tell you that I'm fishing for a coffee bet, which would be correct.
If you're fishing for a coffee bet, I think it's going to happen within 2 years after Tesla perfects FSD and opens it to licensing.
Okay. And what do you think is, like, conservatively, when will Tesla perfect FSD or get it to a point where it is licensable? Conservatively speaking.
If I'm being conservative, I'm going to say 5 years from now.
Oh, wow. So you're saying the 1,000th Ford will hit the roads in 2030, not before 2030.
6 years from now, That's possible. Yeah. 2029, 2030, 2031.
Well, I'm not willing to wait 6 years for a coffee. I'm not that patient. But I also find it really interesting that your expected investment horizon is shorter, 3 to 5 years, than the milestone on which you're basing your investment. How do you explain that?
Because I'm willing to relook at it in 3 to 5 years. I've made the investment. I'm willing to let it sit for 3 to 5 years. I have a stop in place, so if it drops below that, I'm out. And I'm willing to wait 3 to 5 years to take a look at it. If it needs more, if I think in 3 to 5 years that Tesla has made progress on FSD, that it's very close, I'll let it run. If Tesla hasn't made progress on FSD, I'll sell my Ford and just put it into Tesla. I'm holding Tesla for lifetime.
That is an incredible statement. So you're implying that Tesla's progress of FSD is benefiting Ford more. Like if Tesla was slower in developing FSD, you would switch your investment from Ford to Tesla.
I would buy more Tesla. Everything's riding on whether or not Tesla can perfect FSD. Because Tesla is the leader. I think everybody in this room thinks Tesla is their leader. So Tesla has to perfect the technology. Ford, to my understanding, is not working on autonomy. So why would I expect Ford to perfect autonomy before Tesla? They wouldn't.
Okay. All right, I think we can move on. I wish you good luck with your investments. I wish the best for everybody with their investments. Omar, what do you think about Rohan Patel's comments around FSD in Europe? So let me just read this one reply from Rohan. I pinned it at the top of your screen if you'd like to read along. And yeah, so I'll read this real quick. So in a reply to Stephen Peters, well, this is a thread that he replied to. So you guys can, let me just read this entire thread. This is going to take about 2 minutes. Stephen Peters said, "Thank you, AG, for subscribing." That's not what Stephen, this is what I'm saying. "Thank you, AG, for subscribing to Patreon." All right, Stephen Peters said, "Elon Musk, now that DCAS has been approved by the UNECE outside of North America, what's the timeline for Tesla to certify for DCAS so we can finally get at least a taste of what the US has been drinking for years now?" Hashtag FSD Beta Europe. Will Feely tagged Rohan Patel. "Do you have any news to be shared?" Rohan Patel said, "The updated DCAS regs are encouraging, but they won't go into effect until November and don't address the key issue, system-initiated maneuvers, in order to enable the safety benefits of FSD supervised, not just the latest version, but even older ones." Interesting. So Rohan is saying that DCAS won't go into effect until later this year, around November, and don't address the key issue, which is system-initiated maneuvers. Rohan says, "A mindset change," I'm going to also repost this as well. "A mindset change is needed for these regulators, which we have luckily seen in many significant automotive nations. Japan is quite forward-leaning, as an example. Not only is the process inefficient and designed for incremental changes, but the definition of what can be considered an advanced driver assistance function must also change. Over time, it will become impossible to resist these changes given the safety benefits and the improving safety metrics versus status quo," which is, by the way, what we've been saying here for years in this space. "But we need nations to show real leadership. As it stands today, the most exciting technology advancements in transportation will take place outside of great nations that adhere to these UNECE standards. And then Stephen Peters replied, I know that the regs only take effect near end of the year, but Tesla needs to make many software changes to be able to get certified. Just asking for a timeline. Am I reading right that you're saying Tesla won't bring FSD to Europe until we get system-initiated maneuvers approved by UNECE? Rohan says, we could make small improvements to the older versions of FSD, but based on the updated DCAS regulations at the end of the year. But unless there is an updated allowance for system-initiated maneuvers, the full benefits of systems such as supervised FSD are not type approvable. The way the updated regulation works is that the driver would need to approve of almost every significant maneuver or set of maneuvers. Practically, I'm not even sure how that might work or be designed, but it sounds like a massive pain / distraction for a driver. The opposite of the point of both the driver assistance and driver monitoring benefits of supervised FSD. Very good. Very good. Yeah, I mean, I still think that I think it's going to take a massive, major kind of like boots on the ground effort, kind of like what people do with change.org here. Get hundreds of thousands of signatures on it, millions of signatures on it, and then they'll change it. But until then, asking Tesla, well, when are you going to do it? When are you going to do it? Are we there yet? It just doesn't move the ball, I think. Omar, what do you think?
It's never going to happen. It sounds like FSD is essentially illegal. So until one of their local automakers has something that competes, the regulations probably won't be updated. I think there is a little bit of sort of anti-competitiveness here. I mean, I hope I'm wrong, but I just don't see this changing. So that's definitely going to throw cold water on some people's hopes that we would see FSD in Europe due to these updated regulations.
And I guess your Fords in Europe won't be able to run FSD on them. Omar, what do you think this means for demand for Teslas in Europe?
It'll weaken demand. The product will become less differentiated. Many European users actually say the autopilot is not even as good as some of the ADAS systems from their home automakers who are more focused on situations that are localized to those countries. So there seems to be a preference for sort of the local automakers in some cases. Um, I think if they could launch it and or to the extent that they could improve autopilot, it would create the same type of differentiation effect you see in other markets, but generally, sales aren't going to be as strong than if it were allowed. Now, I think if we get to a situation in the US where this technology becomes ubiquitous and the safety benefits are well studied, well understood by independent experts, governments, everyone agrees that this is really reducing crashes. I believe that they will then go and promptly update their regulations to allow it. But that could take 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, I don't know.
In YouTube live chat, the real Zyrtec corrects me and says EU is not the same as Europe. So obviously that's correct. I apologize for misspeaking.
Yeah, we could do the UK.
Right, we could do UK, but also I think there are a number of other countries. I guess do you think Norway and Switzerland could? I mean, the Zyrtec is welcome to come up and kind of teach us. You request to speak.
The number one priority is China. If they could get it out in China, that would be fucking huge. You've got the most competitive EV market in the world, where you've got all kinds of products, and you put something out that's significantly better, that can handle these dynamic situations, that's pre-mapped, that's not pre-mapped, that you can take anywhere. That is a strong differentiating feature in a very crowded market, which is difficult to emulate because there's export restrictions on high-end trading chips for Chinese companies. So they're forced to use, more limited trading chips. They don't not only do they not have Dojo, they don't even have as many H100s. So it could be a very strong differentiator. Of course, the country's complex. You have a very different set of environments there. You'd have to make sure it works well. But if they could successfully launch it, it would be huge. And I think you are seeing some other features from some other brands that offer this type of functionality, but FSD would blow it out of the water. And obviously, this is the largest EV market in the world. They're very tech forward compared to even the US and Europe. So they tend to look at things like autonomous driving and understand it sort of on a scientific and technical level much faster than other markets. The Chinese consumers tended to care a lot more about software. So I think it easily could be a game changer for demand in the Chinese market. So that would be my priority number one. And also, the Chinese government's very reasonable and they understand the science. They want to be ahead in AI and they can move unilaterally. If they decide it gets done, it gets done. Simple. No bureaucracy, no bullshit to deal with. So that would be my focus number one. But of course, I think Australia, New Zealand, other markets, countries in Europe, countries around the world, basically any place, Tesla sells cars, I'd be going to those countries one by one and trying to start conversations with the regulatory bodies there, the relevant ones.
All right. The real Zyrtec adds and says he can't come up to speaker board because he's in bed and about to fall asleep to our voices. So from now on, everybody speak silently. Everybody speak silently. Let's sing some lullaby to Europe. Wonder what country he's in. What country are you in? But he also adds, but there's a few robotaxi projects in Europe already, supervised and several restrictions on speed, geofencing, etc. He's in Norway. There you go. Yeah, I mean, outside of Germany, Norway, Norway, Germany, and UK are the top 3 sales in Europe for Tesla, right?
Iceland, Liechtenstein, Norway, Switzerland are not EU member states. So Norway would be a great place to do it too and start working with
Yeah.
European roads. Huge EV market too.
Yeah, huge, exactly. I mean, if you have Norway and if you can't do it in Norway, somebody should ask Rohan, can you do it in Norway and UK? I mean, I guess UK would require some additional training because of, right-hand driving and all that. But you can start in Norway, maybe. That would be a good example
they
for the
want to
rest
make
of
it
Europe.
work for right-hand drive for sure, obviously.
Right.
But I think, if you're in Norway and you have FSD on your car and it's approved, can you drive it into another country and will it work? I wonder how the regulations work around that. But yeah, it's interesting. There are a few countries that aren't EU member states that could be potential entry points into the market and help them perfect it while the regulations are updated in the member states or the countries that are following these regulations.
All right. I see Joa in the audience, if you would like to come up and give us an update on what kind of order rates he's seeing for aftermarket parts, he's welcome to do so. Any other questions, comments, please request to speak. In the meantime, Omar, would you like to give us an update on 12.3.3? I see on your pinned post, you have FSD supervised completes a real rideshare pickup and drop off with 0 interventions. Rider was praising Waymo at the beginning, but said, quote, FSD is equally as good as Waymo by the time Omar dropped him off at 18 minutes, 25 seconds into the video.
Yeah, so FSD is generally doing very well. It's not doing perfect, but the end-to-end approach is very powerful. I went ahead and dropped someone off at SFO yesterday, and the car took me from Union Street in San Francisco to the airport, pulled over at the terminal. We dropped them off, got their bags, and got back in the car. It drove me all the way back to the city. And I think there was one accelerator press for a flashing yellow light, and that's it. No other input on the drive. Then I did a few ride sharing rides. I think I did, maybe 4 or 5 rides, and about 75% of them were 0 intervention, if you can believe that. So this is in San Francisco. It's night. The city dies down very early. There was very low traffic, but about 75% of the drives, and these are drives with some hills, some tight streets, some crazy terrain. I have the footage of it. I uploaded one of the drives, but it just navigated it all. So the one drive I updated, the first one I uploaded, the passenger got in and he noticed that the car was moving and I wasn't touching the wheel, and he said, "Oh my god, is this one of those fully autonomous cars?" I said, "Well, it's not fully autonomous. I have to watch it, but basically it can drive itself." And he said, "Oh, cool." So he's watching it and he's telling me he's in the Waymo early access program, so he's been riding Waymo. And he says, "Oh yeah, I love Waymo. It's so smooth. I think they're the best out there." And then I drop him off at his house and I say before he leaves, I go, "Well, how did you think of how the car drove?" And he said, "Honestly, it's just as equally as good as a Waymo." And it's funny, I've heard that comment so many times. Meta mentioned it when I gave him his first drive. Ryan from the Kilowatts mentioned it when I gave him his first drive. And now this random guy who is a Waymo customer is also mentioning it. So to get Waymo-like performance without the hardware and the pre-mapping of a Waymo nationwide, if not worldwide, is a huge breakthrough. Even if it's not quite as reliable yet. And I said 75% of the drives were 0 intervention. So people don't believe it can be a robotaxi. It's already out there making money, doing entire pickups and drop-offs for me, and I'm just entering the address, right? And the interventions that I did have were flashing red lights, flashing yellow lights, which seems like it should be relatively easy to fix. Like, I don't see this being a showstopper. Like, oh my God, we can't figure out how to handle flashing red and yellow lights. Like, I've seen them handled before. So if they just fixed that one issue, then I only would have had one intervention. And that intervention was just that I was at a stop sign and there was a car approaching from the other side and the car wasn't moving. And the passenger said, "You can go, they have a stop sign." So the car was waiting a little longer than it should. And I pushed the accelerator because the passenger's saying, like, "Go, why are you waiting?" But that was the only other intervention. So it's basically on this shitty first version of 12, able to do real ride sharing workflows so comfortably that riders don't even notice, and is able to handle, challenging real world scenarios, people walking out, tight streets, all the kind of real stuff it needs to do. It's actually working. So it's kind of just mind blowing to see it. I think I'm going to start doing more of these videos where I just do real ride sharing rides and just show what it's doing, because the success rate is shockingly high. And, granted, again, that was night, there was low traffic, it'd be worse in the daytime, I'm sure. But we're just getting started here. We got 12.3, 12.4, 12.5. And honestly, it's the easiest money ever. I just sit there, right? And I'm testing FSD anyway, trying to figure out where to make it drive. I just sit there, I get these random addresses given to me by the app, and I just take people around. I do the testing I was normally going to do, but I just have someone in the car with me and take them where they're going to go. And it's like the easiest job you've ever seen. You're just sitting there and the car is working and making money for you. And you just have to watch, obviously. So it's really easy to imagine my car going out and making money for me, right? What needs to change? Only thing that needs to change is just that the software works so well that I don't need to be there to watch it. And it seems like we're moving quickly in that direction.
Thank you. We're going to dig into a little bit more, but let me just do one more. So back to the Europe EU conversation. Team Torch says United Nations Economic Council for Europe. How is that related to the EU? Does anyone know on the board? I really need a European expert in the Europe market to come up to explain to us. Maybe Steam Torch, or if the real Zyrtec is still awake. Come on, we have some listeners in Europe.
So my understanding, and this is like I haven't looked up the full details yet, but I think this is sort of like an ancillary body that sets some standards that are actually adopted more widely, including by non-EU member countries. So you might have even like a non-EU country that just didn't want to do the work of setting up the regulations, or like some African country or something. They want to adopt good regulations. They can just kind of adopt these UNECE standards or whatever. And I think there are some non-EU countries that do that.
Thank you. Jesus love.
Hey, aloha, Omar. Haven't received my free FSD. Is it going slow?
Well, I mean, it depends on your definition of slow, but not everybody has it yet. So, are you on the 2024.8 software or something like that?
My car is 2021, so I'm not sure.
Well, why don't you just DM me and we can figure it out, but it's not unusual. There's, for example, legacy SNX owners and people who are on the latest software branch, and a lot of people who haven't gotten it yet. So everybody is going to get it, but just not necessarily all at the same time.
And then your
Go
month
ahead.
starts from when you receive your invite.
Yeah, correct. You're going to get the software update. Then the software update, once it's installed, will activate the trial, which will be 30 days from that date.
So cool. Thanks.
Steve Steranka in YouTube Live asks, no aloha for the rest of us? Just Omar?
Oh, aloha for all you guys. Come on over. We can't live without you. If there's no tourism, there's.
Thank you so much. So I have I guess this is going back to something that was talked about earlier today, and going back to the whole Waymo topic. But I just wanted to more or less revisit something that I've been seeing a lot on X, and I kind of want to know on what everybody else's opinion on this is. And this is the topic of, well, does Tesla have all the hardware that they basically need to go on and run FSD? And like earlier today, I'm more than sure everybody saw that, like, oh, the stock went up, nice, all that. And I saw my favorite brand new news reporter. I actually made a little post that I'd love to interview him. I'm a college student at U of M, and I am fully willing to pay for his travels to come to Michigan. Our hero, Dan O'Dowd. And
Mishka, new speakers are limited to asking questions, not promoting
no,
their business.
Sorry. Question about this. So my question is this: about the way that FSD works. In your opinion, do you think the hardware on Tesla is more than sufficient to run a higher level of autonomy than what we currently have? Then what it's already running. Because in my opinion, the way that I see it is right now.
Nope, just questions.
Oops,
Thank you. Omar, is the current hardware on Teslas enough to run full autonomy?
Yeah, I think it is. But I also think that people focus way too much on this question. If they need hardware 6 and they achieve autonomy, who's going to give a fuck? They're going to be rich, right? They can give everyone a free upgrade. They can figure something out. So people have just been so wrong about the hardware. And they just keep beating the drum on this. It can't do it. It can't do it. It's tapped out. Then you get version 12, which actually uses less resources and drives better. So I think we'll be surprised by what hardware 3 can do, honestly. And right now, I'm not seeing any difference between hardware 3 and hardware 4. So hardware 3 still has a lot of improvement ahead of it. And if there's something they need to change, they can change it. They've designed all the cameras to pop off. They've designed the computer to pop out. They thought about this. Don't worry about it. Just enjoy.
Yeah, I remember it was like a year or 2 years ago, really. People were talking about how hardware 3 compute was tapped out. And just look at the amount of progress that Tesla has made with that same amount of compute.
They're actually using less now.
Yeah, exactly. Zachary.
Hey guys, I got the FSD trial on both of my cars, 2018 Model 3 and 2021, and it's handling Chicago unbelievably good. I live in the suburbs. I work in downtown. It's pretty much taking me to work without any interruptions, 3-4 days in a row. I've driven to any suburb almost. It's doing everything absolutely perfect, except for some reason sometimes cannot figure out how to park in front of my house, but everything else is perfect. And in downtown, like the one mistake it did, it dropped me off at the building next to my condo in downtown instead of, but that's like very small problem. So it just works phenomenally well. I'm blown away, and I've been skeptical about FSD all along, even I've been invested in Tesla. So it made a believer out of me. To me, this is the SpaceX landing the rockets moment when I did not believe Elon Musk can do it. Thank you.
Thank you, Zachary. Omar.
I'm seeing a commenter here, Dario XZ, who says UNECE is working on another proposal for system initiated maneuvers. See here. And he's pointed me to a wiki page where there's going to be a meeting there was a meeting on the 15th of March where they were talking about this proposal. So it may not be as far out as maybe Rohan was making it seem. Maybe, I don't know if he's not aware of this or if he is really just trying to, ask for some much broader changes than even what this proposal has here. But I thought that was an interesting comment from somebody who's listening.
Thank you for catching that. Yeah, I really appreciate people who go onto the replies. Like, there's no way I can, catch all the questions. And like Omar did, and somebody left a reply, corrected the record. And sometimes I see people replying to each other and kind of answering other people's questions in the replies, which is great. That takes the load off from me as the host and from other speakers. And it also helps the engagement of the space as well. So kind of, hitting two goals at once. Wes Hicks and then Andy.
Hey guys, what's happening? Hey, I was hoping Omar could kind of catch me up a little bit with the Waymo technical strategy. I really haven't been paying a lot of attention to them because I thought they were dependent on LiDAR, and of course they have a small fleet and they're geofence strategy. But listen,
Wes Hicks, your connection is really bad, or is it just me, Omar? Okay.
No, it's breaking up. I could kind of hear him, but it's on and off.
Yeah, I couldn't hear what he said. Well, why don't you kind of stay on mute for a second? Andy, go ahead.
Hey guys. Hey, Omar, just to add to what you said earlier, I'm actually in my car right now giving out Uber rides. I got the FSD 12 last week and I was just doing a bunch of testing. And I was like, hey, I might as well just start giving people rides so I can, let them see FSD 12 and see how it is. And today was my first time doing Uber ride. Two people asked me for a referral code. And what I do is at the end of the ride, 1 minute before arriving to the destination, I ask them, hey, how was the ride? And they'll tell me like, hey, this is a really smooth ride. Like you did a good job. And I'll be like, oh, by the way, I'm actually not driving. I'm just supervising. And they'll be like, wait, what? And they get like really excited and they start talking to me about like, oh, actually, I've been looking at trying to buy a Tesla, but I didn't know it can do this. This is so cool. Yeah, so I'm doing exactly what you're saying, Omar, and it's crazy. Yeah. And they're leaving me like $5 tips, $10 tips. The ride is like $8 and they're leaving me like crazy tips just because like they're so excited about it. So anyway, that's what I wanted to say.
That's awesome, Andy. Thanks for sharing.
No, honestly, I think the software can actually drive more smoothly than I can. Yes, it makes more mistakes, but it can just little things like stopping to a stop sign, immediately going when the light turns green, stuff like that. It's better and smoother than me. I can't stop that smoothly compared to what it can do. So the passengers actually like it more. They rate it more highly. And that's, I think, really surprising. And I think honestly everybody should just go sign up to be an Uber or Lyft driver because, even if you have a job or whatever, you can still just turn it on, do one ride, whatever. And if everybody just showed FSD to, just a few people around them. So they have a thing in the app where you can look for rides going your direction. So let's say you're in San Francisco, you have to drive down to San Jose. You could say, okay, give me people who are going the same direction. And you could show it to them, you know, maybe get some referrals and then get some free FSD, right? You can get 3 free months with 10,000 credits. And then you also make some money if you're going to, test it anyway. Why not make some money? And then you can actually pay for the FSD, your subscription or whatever with that money. And, it can also be kind of fun. You meet some random people, you talk to them, you show them the thing and get some referrals maybe and maybe make their life better. And they go, wow, this actually ended up saving my life because this guy, randomly showed it to me.
Xander.
Hey everyone. In that line of thinking, yesterday I met a 2019 all-in holder, and of course with my Cybertruck, and there was a couple of 25-year-old dudes, and the guy I met ended up offering to take them for a ride, and it made such an impression. It made me think about this exact topic of, you know, it would be so worthwhile to have FSD rides, like maybe some sort of incentive structure to allow or to incentivize current owners who do have jobs, but to give these rides. Because can you imagine a Cybertruck pulling up to give you your Uber ride? As soon as it's available, that's what I'm doing with the Cybertruck. I like the impression that we could make on people is just bananas.
Thank you, Xander. Wessex, would you like to continue with your point or question?
Yeah, thank you. Hopefully this works. Yeah, Omar, I was
Yep.
hoping you could catch me up with kind of where Waymo is with their technical strategy. I don't know if you heard my question earlier, but what I kind of ignored them because, I understood they had a LiDAR strategy, geofenced, and a small fleet. So
All right, looks
those
like we've got our
limitations,
second
I just
rider.
didn't dig in. But over the last couple months, you've made me realize that they've got a pretty good service that they're offering and expanding rapidly. And I've also heard some mention of cameras and that kind of thing. And I realized I don't understand if they have the same strategy or similar, even though they're smaller, et cetera, which is capturing data from the small fleet, sending it back to headquarters, if you will, having a model trained, and then sent via update into the car for an inference computer to process. Is it the same loop like that, or is it different? And what role are cameras going to play? For example, you think they're going to break off a lidar and kind of go with a camera-only system? And I don't know if you know any of these answers, but just curious if you could help me kind of move along here.
Well, I always use Waymo instead of an Uber when I can. So when I'm within the city limits of San Francisco, I don't have the invite in LA yet. And it basically just works perfectly all the time. So 24/7, rain, sunshine. It adopts certain strategies. It is remotely monitored. It doesn't go certain routes. It takes a route that it knows it can handle well. And, obviously it has a lot of sensing on it. It has HD maps, the whole city scanned. It knows where every stop sign is. But it basically works. It shows that you can actually run an autonomous service and it can work fine. And there really won't be very many crashes at all. So, the big sort of issue for them, I wouldn't say they're expanding rapidly. So they have a service in Arizona, which is open to anybody. So you can go fly to Phoenix Metro and try it, Chandler, Arizona. But the service in LA and San Francisco are invite only. So how do you go from invite only to open to everybody without wait time surging massively? They're already way longer than Uber. So really what we need to see is them just start making a lot more cars if they want to expand the service. If we saw them just making a lot more cars, sending out a lot more invites, and eventually making LA and San Francisco open to anybody somehow, then I would say, okay, they're actually expanding. They're actually, serving these markets fully, not on an invite only basis. But right now, it's kind of like it's a really interesting business. I mean, it's hardly a business at all. It's really a research project that kind of has like a little bit of a business tacked onto it. But it's just kind of a mess. I mean, they've got this co-CEO situation and they've got really this service that's bleeding cash. I mean, something like licensing, if they could license it to others, I think to put into vehicles would make sense. But they'd probably have to go to, a pure vision solution or something close to that, which isn't beyond Google's capabilities, but they need to then source the data set, which is, expensive and time consuming. So although Waymo, I think, is a great service if you're lucky enough to have access to it, it's just kind of a mess of a business. And I don't see them having the leadership with the fire to turn that around. I could be wrong. They could put in new leadership, or I could be underestimating the current leadership. But I don't see the fire to really scale this technology in any meaningful way right now.
So you think they're using heuristics instead of AI?
No, I think they're using a pretty similar approach to Tesla. So it's AI is really the only kind of way to do it. So I think it's kind of like a two part neural network or something like that. So it's a little bit different than what Tesla's doing, but they're using a lot of AI, right? It's heavily AI based. Obviously, they're also using mapping, so they're relying on that. They're relying on some of the other sensor modalities and some conventional stuff around that. So it's not as pure deep learning as what Tesla's doing. There are a lot of sort of other pieces bolted on there, but they're making heavily use of AI. I wouldn't say it's just all heuristics.
Ishka.
The other question that I wanted to ask you, Omar, was so based on, I mean, I think anybody who's tried 12.3.3, as a lot of people have said here, I've also done a little bit of Uber, and that handles just about anything that you really throw at the car really, really well. And especially in comparison to, 11.4.9, it's definitely a crazy experience. But so the question is, with the level of anatomy of where it's at, obviously it can go up and higher and all that. Well, it's a two-part question. First, why do you think they're not upping the level of anatomy on it? Because I recently saw the Mercedes apparently has a level 3 anatomy thing, but performance-wise, I mean, I don't really, hear much about it. So I would assume that Tesla is very much ahead of them. But how is it that they get level 3 anatomy and Tesla doesn't? And do you know like how that technically works, or like what is the technical background behind that?
Well, I mean, I think Tesla could do what Mercedes does and say, okay, you can take your hands off and not pay attention during a traffic jam. But I mean, it wouldn't really make the system any better or worse than it is. So I think people focus a little bit too much like the levels. They they think they're like levels of a video game or something, and you have to beat each one. But really, what you need to do fundamentally is just solve vision and understanding, just being able to see the world and understand it. And then you can have the only true level 5 system.
So I do agree with that, but from a, I guess, investor perspective is the way that I see it as well on this. Wouldn't it be strategically beneficial for Tesla to, increase their level, or would it possibly be bad because they'd be taking on potentially more liability than they're willing to handle? Is that possibly the reasons why?
Mishka, let me ask you this. What do you think would happen to Tesla stock price if they tomorrow said, you know what, its FSD is now level 3?
I don't think it'd be too major, but I do believe it would, at the very least, separate Tesla from a lot of other companies that might still be at level 2. Because I think like the way that I see it is on Wall Street, the main thing that they care about is, okay, well, is this on paper like level 3 or level 2? At least that's how I see it. I could be completely wrong on this. But
No, I think you're right that that's the way they see it. But I guess you're assuming that that's the way like Elon makes decisions to cater to Wall Street or the stock price as opposed
no,
to.
that's very true. Yeah, I don't think he'd do that. But I'm more of like interested, I guess, as because then the day, Tesla's job is to serve its investors, right? So I guess my job would, I mean, my question would be like, is the reason that they're not doing that, in your opinion, because they're trying to be very cautious and they want to, when they release the product, they want it to be superb? Or do you think it's because they're just trying to minimize liability, I guess? Or is there any liability they would take on if they do level 3 or all that?
Look, I mean, they'll do the same thing that Mercedes is doing. Sure, why not? After they go end to end on the highway, once it's looking reliable enough, sure, if you're in a traffic jam, you can take your eyes off the road. And they can get the same permit. It's not very difficult. They don't really quiz you or anything. They just sort of give it to you.
Really?
So,
That's interesting.
yeah, it's, people's perception of this is so just off from what the fundamental issues really are. I mean, having the sort of a traffic jam assist and calling it level 3, they can check that checkbox off. It's relatively trivial to do, but it is far removed from what the fundamental issues are of actually getting this thing reliable enough for driverless, I think.
That makes sense. And then one last bit that I was going to ask was, there were a lot of rumors circulating about like, the full self driving getting rid of, the wheel nag and all that, which I wish. But do you know if that's like a thing that they actually might be moving in the direction of, to where rather than having the wheel nag, it's more of like is the driver paying attention and looking forward type thing? Or is that possibly out the window because of like the people that used to abuse the picture in front of the camera and all of that? Do you know, Omar?
Sorry, what did you say?
Oh, sorry. So I know that.
Yeah, Mishka, if you got to keep your questions to 10 words or fewer. I don't know what you asked either.
Oh, so sorry.
10 words or fewer. So just generally speaking, people in the space, they're like doing other things. Nobody's like really paying attention most of the time. They're like cooking. They are washing dishes, folding clothes, cleaning the floors, doing yard work. Some people are on the toilets. Some people are eating Popeye's chicken. And so really, it's much better for everybody, for all involved, and for you too, if you just keep your question to 10 words or fewer.
Understood. So the question is, do you think Tesla will remove the wheel nag and switch to the camera tracking your face and eyes? Or
yes.
Okay. So that's not out of
they've
the window.
already made, you can already see in the language they've removed references to holding the wheel. So I think once they feel comfortable about the reliability of the software, they're going to do this. Systems like Super Cruise and Blue Cruise allow you to take your hands off on the highway, so I don't see why FSD shouldn't be allowed to go hands-free on the highway and cabin camera only. The cabin camera has long since been good enough. And, if you see my videos, I just turned off the nag and it just works fine. So there's no reason to have a nag. The nag is a sick, cruel joke being played on everyone. Touch the wheel. Touch the wheel.
Wait, your nag's removed? Because I watch your videos, but I'm not seeing that.
Well, I didn't say that. But just hypothetically, if you didn't have a nag, you'd be able to see it's not necessary at all.
I'm gonna need to go rewatch your stuff. I have a feeling there's a little cheat going on behind the scenes here.
Mishka, let me ask you a couple of questions. So I think this is the first time you're speaking, right?
This is the first time I'm speaking in the space with you. Yeah, I've talked to Holmars and a few others before.
Okay. Wait, you talk like in person?
No, not in person. No. In person, I've talked to like Dirty Tesla and like Michigan people.
Okay, gotcha.
Nobody here.
So what is this Mishka and Mini that you're the CEO of?
Oh, that's my tutoring company. It's unrelated to anything Tesla related.
That's okay.
Yeah, my girlfriend and I run it.
So I always ask questions to first-time speakers to kind of understand a little bit more about them. So you're doing calculus tutoring for other students?
Yeah, so we tutor university students for their like bachelor's level and some master's level courses for their mathematics. And then my girlfriend also tutors some programming, some physics as well. But we started the tutoring business because I really want to go into a PhD in machine learning. Tesla actually was the reason as to why I fell in love with AI. And Holmars, huge shout out to you. You are the reason as to why I purchased FSD. I have been paying attention to the whole, Tesla scene since 2019. That's when the car got on my radar because I started attending college. And I was like, okay, well, you know what? When I graduate, I'll probably when I get a car. And after I got my first degree, back in 2022, I've been saving for a car, and I got the Model Y as my first car. Unfortunately, my car got ran off the road by a Kroger truck, and it was deemed a hit and run. So they paid me out, and I was fortunate enough to get a Model X. But so that was definitely a nice thing. But I got
That's a great car.
All right.
yeah, I
What
got
year was the Model X?
I just got it actually. So Holmar promoted my post. I was gonna either get the Cybertruck or the Model X. Unfortunately, nobody used my referral, so I was 5,000 points away from getting the Cybertruck accelerated. Because Dirty Tesla, Chris really convinced me on the Cybertruck. Like Chris really did it. And then I talked to Omar, and Omar was like, "Get the Cybertruck," and I was like, "Oh, I wish," but sadly didn't get the points. So I got my 2024 Model X order. Absolutely love it. My girlfriend, soon to be fiance, thank God she's not listening to this, so she has no idea. But she loves it. This is gonna be her car probably in 3-4 years. But yeah, like I've been paying attention to the Tesla sphere for a while, and we started our touring company because we wanted to be significantly better at mathematics and programming. So that when we go into a PhD, or well, when I go into a PhD, I want to have the deepest possible understanding. And the way that my family has always taught me has been, if you know a topic good enough, you should be able to teach it. So that's why I started tutoring, so that I can start teaching people and increase my own proficiency in mathematics and in programming. But my goal right now is to finish my data science degree and then go straight into a PhD, hopefully at the University of Michigan, for machine learning. And ultimately, my goal is to implement the utilization of AI into the education sphere, just to allow for people to actually learn information and use AI to generate more materials, to allow for students to more or less have like a more personalized learning, to where if they don't understand a certain topic, they're given more practice for it, rather than the way that it is now, where I've seen countless friends of mine, cheat their way through high school, cheat their way through various other things. And then now in college, they're dropping out and they're not, going to college anymore because it's too hard for them, or it's too expensive, or they're not prepared enough. It's taking them an extra year and all that. And I'm just overall scared for the world and for like when I have kids and everything else, to where if, in my opinion, education is not improved with the way that everything is advancing on AI and everything else, what kind of jobs are people going to have? If I very much believe that AI is about to replace a lot of things out of existence. But yeah, that's a bit about me. So hopefully that's
okay. That's great. Thank you for sharing. That's awesome. The things you've done so far. So you said you've met Chris? How many times have you met
so
him?
I've met him once. It was a really funny story because I met him when he was at the Ipsy charger with his Cybertruck the day of like his start of road trip. And my girlfriend and I, we went there to just charge our car, and I was going to take her to Michigan State, which is the university she goes to. Because I go to UMich, she goes to MSU. We got a little rivalry at home. But she did get accepted for master's in my school, so that's gonna be really awesome. Really, really proud of her. She's also doing computer engineering with the whole AI stuff with me. But sorry, I'm really passionate about that one. But no, so we came there to supercharge the car, and it just happened that Chris was there in his Cybertruck, and he was I believe filming a video with somebody from Rebellion for FSD 12. So that was actually like a California FSD 12 car there as well that they brought. And I remember pulling into that thing, and I just saw the license plate, and I started screaming to my girlfriend, being like, "That's Chris! I know that's Chris!" Because I've talked to him before on Twitter and everything else. Because Omar over here is the reason as to why I got the FSD. Chris is the reason as to why I got a Tesla in Michigan. So to me, it's like, and the crazy part is, on the same day when that happened, both Chris and you, Omar, followed me on Twitter. So that was like my peak day of like, I was just like, I'm getting involved in these faces things. Like, I'm getting involved in the Celtic community. And yeah, so I met Chris on that day. We spoke a little bit. We, sat in the Cybertruck. And that's actually the day when Omar also promoted my tweet for the referral thing, because I was like, I'm getting the Cybertruck today. Sadly didn't go in, but it's fine. It's totally fine. I'm so happy with the Model X, and Cybertruck Gen 2 is just going to be the next car I'll get. So
Yeah, the Model X is super underrated. I love my Model S. It's like very refined. You know, the Cybertruck, you're going to be dealing with more early adopter stuff. You're
mhm.
paying a ton. The Model X is trusted, it's true, and it's just like kind of the best car they make in many ways.
I also will tell you this, and Omar, you most definitely know this since you will have a Model X. I don't know actually how it would be in Cali. I don't know how it would be in Cali, but I know in Michigan, especially on a college campus, anytime I come to pick my girlfriend up from anywhere, it's definitely, a head turner. The back door opens. I swear, everybody looks at it and like, I don't know, there's something about being able to buy a car and not like go in debt for it, but at the same time have it be a convenience, and at the same time more or less like I don't think flex is the right word, but it kind of is, to where that when your girl's getting into a car, she's getting into a safe car. She's getting into a car where she's going to be comfortable. And it's so nice to the point of where even her ego gets boosted, because we've had guys like literally be like, "Oh my God, do you see his car?" And it's like, it's such a fulfilling feeling to know that like I worked my ass off and was able to like get the car. But the little thing that nobody even knows about, that's not even the most amazing part. The FSD is the level of which this car can go on and do all of this, even blows the doors out of the water. So yeah. And also FSD 12.3 is my girlfriend approved, which is crazy because there was no way ever that she would have approved 11.4.9. She hated that. 12.3.3, she can fall asleep while the car's going. So
All right.
it's a cute bit.
That's really good. Thanks, Mishka, for sharing all that. And I look forward to discussing with you machine learning topics. And let's go to Xander. Why don't you stay on speaker with Xander?
Yeah, Yaman, thanks for letting him get long-winded. I know it's not your standard procedures. His enthusiasm for meeting FSD drivers made me smile.
Yeah, we have rules and guidelines, but it's kind of his profile looks interesting. So data scientist. That reminds me of a data scientist. Ranger the dog in life that says UM and MSU are like Romeo and Juliet. Is that true? Oh, he means you went. Okay, gotcha. Never mind. I just got that. Jimmy.
U of M and MSU are like Romeo and Juliet. Yes, very much so. Because rival schools and all of that. Yes, but she's switching sides. She's switching sides, guys. And before she knows it, she's gonna have a ring on her finger before she even gets into the school.
So you say she doesn't know you're about to pop the question?
Oh, she knows that. She doesn't know. Well, okay. How would I say this? So thank God she doesn't listen to Twitter. Like, she does not pay attention to Twitter, so I can just publicly talk about this. But no.
This is also on YouTube too, FYI, and it's recorded.
She doesn't watch YouTube. It's fine. It's fine. She knows that she's like very school driven, and the only social media she's on is promoting stuff for our business. That's kind of it.
How are you gonna do it?
I got you. So she's doing an internship over the summer in Illinois, and at the end of that internship, I'm going to be going up. I'm going to be just, probably last week or two of that internship. Well, she's in a really good mood because she's hopefully going to love it. Just, drive there, maybe take her out for ice cream and stuff like that. And then she's going to have like a 2-day break there where we're going to go to a few places just around Illinois to kind of like explore. And I was thinking of going to the dunes there and popping the question there. But she does know that I will do it over the next 2 years because we publicly talked about it. We've been together for a while. We know each other since 6th grade. But it's
Oh, Mishka got cut off. Do you guys hear him?
Oh,
Propose to her on FSD.
First proposal on FSD. Oh boy. All right. Well, Mishka, thank you very much for coming. All right, let's switch back to Tesla.
Of course. Okay.
Yeah, that's all right.
I have to do this
Let's
other
see.
space with Sawyer in 5 minutes.
Okay, that's all right. You can always come back later. Actually, we should probably end it in a couple of minutes. Jimmy, go ahead.
Yeah, I only have 2 minutes. My question is, how do you see state laws and local laws affecting FSD when they get to robo-taxis or now? And the reason I bring this up is my state just banned Lyft and Uber because they weren't making minimum wage specs. And so on May 1st, we will actually not have taxi services in our area, which I think as a Tesla person, that's great because now they can take over that entire market with robo taxis. But on the negative side of that, there's no one else competing in the space. So will the prices of that like skyrocket?
Omar?
Regulation's kind of unpredictable. Right now it's done at the state level. So it's actually kind of interesting with California. A lot of the cities, like the city of San Francisco and the city of LA, were actually opposed to the robo taxis, but the state level government overseeded them and they were given the permit and allowed to operate. And ironically, the local government is left to deal with the mess, right? So it's the LAPD, the SFPD, the fire department there that's left to respond to the mess, but it's the state government that's actually giving the proposal. So, I mean, that's going to vary from state to state. Other states may give more local control, but it's been kind of an interesting tension in California. Right now, we have kind of a state by state approach, but ultimately, I expect that we will just adopt federal legislation and it'll just be handled at the federal level. And I expect that states probably won't be able to supersede the federal authorities once they're established there.
All right. This has been going on for about 2 hours. If you'd like to support the space, you can do so through the link at the top of your screens. Thank you very much, everybody. There's another space that's about to start, Omar, right? So we
Yeah.
can't continue with that one.
I
Thank
think
you.
it's like,
and I
will
will...
Tesla ever recover or something?
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. And I will talk to you tomorrow. Take care.